Hey guys, hopefully everyone is doing well. Today's target is to solve question number 9.17. The chapter which we are related with is labor costing. We have already solved 16 questions and you are well familiar with the scenario related to labor costing where we do not have a permanent performer or format for solution of these questions. For each question we observe the requirement of labor costing and we redesign our performer for the solution. Secondly, we are associated with cost and management accounting where we are usually be related with three major factors: material, labor, and FH. In this chapter, we are specifically related with labor costing, and as you know, for calculation of wages of labor, there are two main factors: time rate method, where which we will use number of hours worked and it would be multiplied with per hour rate, and simply we will calculate the wage of particular worker. Second, we have seen is piecework rate system, under which what we do, we just conclude how many pieces a worker had made and it would be multiplied with per piece rate. So right or left, under or down, direct or indirect, we will be associated only with these two factors, and you will see we will use any one or both of them in all of the questions, and perhaps in 16 questions you have already in your mind that we have used only these two main factors. Question number 9.17 is in front of you. The volume of the question and appearance is here. From here to here, volume is not so much lengthy, but we do have two workers, Rashid and Bashir. Two workers are working in manufacturing concern and we are asked to calculate their normal and overtime wages. Just like in 9.15 and 16, we were calculating wages and overtime payment for two workers. In the similar way, we do have two workers and separately we will be calculating their normal wages. Here another factor or element we are going to share is there are two methods of calculation of overtime. Either you can calculate overtime 100% separate, or one part of overtime can be included in normal wages. So today we will use only one method where one part would be included in normal wages and remaining part would be calculated separately. Since it was just theoretical introduction, and we will let you know completely how to make normal wages and overtime payment separately. First, you can see we have two workers, so let's mention Rashid first worker, and for him we will use days, and here next is normal hours, then hours worked will be calculated, after which we will see overtime hours, and then we will pay normal wages, overtime pay, and in last column we will see total wages. This way our performa would be completed, and I am openly inviting you to please suggest any other performa. If you have any other idea how to if you have any other idea how to design the working, you are very open. Okay, please consider this invitation. How I would solve, it's not the permanent way of solution, or it's not the fixed way of solution. You can choose by yourself. Right now we are working for Rashid and we will be following the inputs accordingly. He had worked for Monday to Saturday, so Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and from here we will see how many hours he had worked. Follow these horizontally: 10, 9, 11, 10, 10, 9, 11, 10, Now for these working hours for Monday to Friday, let's see for Friday 8 and 11, 8 and 11. What we have completed hours worked, and obviously these hours worked include both overtime and normal hours. Normal hours are mentioned or should have been mentioned 48 hours per week. 48 hours per week. So per day means it would be divided by 6 hour working days. 48 divided by 6 would be 8. As usual, per day working hours are considered as 8. So normal hours would be similar for full week. Now we will calculate our overtime. How? Look, hours worked 10 while normally it was given 8 hours. So overtime would be 10 minus 8, 2. Understood? 8 hours were given to work, but this worker, Rashid, had worked on Monday 10 hours. That means 2 hours are overtime. Second day he had worked for 9. Normal hours were 8. So overtime is 1. Wednesday he had worked 11 hours while normal working hours were 8. So it means 3. Thursday 10 working hours he worked while normal hours were 8. On Friday, no overtime, 8 hours were given and he had worked for 8 hours. Similarly, on Saturday, normal hours were 8 and he had worked for 11 hours. Overtime hours are mentioned separately. Now let's go to see normal wages, how they will be paid. Rashid is paid normal wages as 50 per hour. Here you can mention. We will see hours worked and it would be multiplied with 50. So this way you can calculate normal wages of Rashid. Hours worked 10 and multiply by 50. So 10 multiplied by 50 your hours worked. 500, and now you will calculate for Tuesday hours worked. Look over here, 9, and per hour rate is 50. Next day hours worked 11, per hour wage rate 50. Then you have next day 10 multiplied by 50. Next day 8 and it would be multiplied by 50. Usually I share the concept you can use Excel and Excel will automatically calculate everything. But since in your university computers are not allowed, mobiles are not allowed, so you will not be able to solve question if you will use right now, if you will learn calculation through Excel. So that is why I am calculating manually. Otherwise it is so easy for me to calculate these amounts. I will write down the program, write down the formula and will copy this formula to all of the columns. And you can see, you will see that within 2-3 seconds all calculations can be completed. For Saturday, hours worked 11 and per hour rate is 50. So this way you have completed your normal wages. And now for overtime payment, please understand, as I have told you, there are two methods. Here we had mixed our overtime into hours worked. Kindly note it down. In 10 hours, 8 were normal and 2 hours were overtime. And since we have calculated normal wages for 10 hours, which already included 2 hours of overtime, it means one part of overtime has already been paid. Now go to the question and see how overtime is paid. For overtime hours, worker are paid time and half. That means one part plus half part. 1.5 times would be paid. So please note it down. Overtime was already included in hours worked and we had paid here 10 hours, which include overtime. Means one part has already been paid and we are required to pay 0.5 part as well. So here your overtime payment is overtime hours and multiply it with per hour, which is 50, and again multiply it with zero point 0.5. How we have taken zero point 0.5? That is given in your question. Time and half. One part is already paid. Half means 1 by 2. 1 by 2 means zero point 0.5 part would be paid separately. This is your first method. Okay, come over here. Your overtime hours for Monday 2, it would be multiplied per hour 50 as mentioned over here, and then you need to make it half. For half you will write zero point 0.5. So this way first overtime you have calculated. Then for second overtime you have 1 hour multiply by 50 per hour, then multiply zero point 0.5 to make it half. For next day you have 3 hours as your overtime, multiply 50 per hour and multiply zero point 0.5 to make it half. Next is 2 overtime hours, multiply by 50 and multiply zero point 0.5 to make it half. Finally, we are on Friday, no overtime hours, 0. On Saturday, we have no overtime hours 3, multiply by 50 per hour and multiply by zero point 0.5 to make it half. All overtime payments are present over here. It's time to calculate their sum, and for sum you will calculate sum of normal wages separately and sum of overtime payments separately. First we will calculate the sum of normal wages. 550, 400, 554 and 500. Sum is over here 2950, and you can see Rashid's normal payment 2950. And then you will calculate both overtime payment. You will add all amounts of overtime, 75, 50, 75, 25, 50. So you have got sum of overtime. Second answer you can see 275. Though answers are matched, but here I would like to add few more things. For that I will just copy whole data to save the time, and will make the difference in a different way. You will put over here, and here one part is left. You will calculate total sum of wages of first worker, and for that you will add your normal wages and amount of overtime. Amount of normal wages 2950 and add overtime payment 275. So this would be total payment made to first worker. In second portion, how you will calculate the normal wages? You will change over here, since in question it was said time and half. Okay, please understand, time and half. For overtime, time means 1, half means 0 0.5, so you will multiply it with 1.5. And for normal wages, instead of hours worked, you will use normal hours. Normal hours worked multiplied by 50. So instead of hours worked, you will separate normal hours and overtime hours. Here you can see your normal hours were 8 and multiply it with 50. In the similar way, you will be calculating for normal wages of every day. Here the difference would be created. Overtime payment as separated. In 8 hours overtime was not included, and in your question it was required to pay overtime payment time plus half, that means 1.5. Overtime payment 2, overtime hours were 2, and it would be multiplied with 50 per hour and then multiply 1.5, which was actual instruction of the question. So in this way you will calculate your amount of overtime for every day. I am using the formulas. Now take sum of normal wages. Why I am copying over here? Because one method would be used for your answer in exam. Both methods are not needed. So you can use any of this method which is suitable for you. Again, you will take sum of overtime payment, and finally you will calculate total sum. To calculate your total sum, you will add normal wages 2400 and then add 825 your overtime payment. So this way 3225 you can see the answer. 3225 and 3225 answers are matched, but we had separated amount of normal wages and overtime wages. They are not calculated collectively. So we had paid them normal and overtime separately. So these are two methods. In first method, you have mixed overtime payment in hours worked, 10 hours including normal hour as well as overtime. So one part was paid as normal and additional half part of payment of overtime was paid separately. This is first method. Instead of doing this, just separate normal hours and overtime hours completely. Normal hours were 8 paid in this way, and overtime payment as according to question was to be paid time plus half 1.5. So in this way you can complete your question in two different ways. Whatever method you want, you can choose it. Okay, let's go back to the question. Second person is Bashir. For Bashir, we will be using same headings which we have used in our previous part. Now we are going to see second person, and name of second person is Bashir. Here you will calculate Bashir's payment. For that we will use same headings which were used for calculation of previous worker. Days would also be same, so we are taking these headings as well. For second worker, normal hours category is also same. Hours worked would be calculated, would be mentioned according to hours given in your question. So come over here. Bashir had worked 9, 8, 10. 9, 8, 10 for first 3 days, and second 3 days 9, 8, 11, 9, 8 and 11. So in this way you have completed raw data, and from here you will start to calculate your overtime. Normal hours were 8, but he had worked 9 hours, it means 1 extra hour. For second, no overtime. For third, 8 hours were normal, he worked for 10 hours, 2 extra hours. For next one, for next day, no overtime as 8 hours were given and he had worked for 8 hours as well, so no overtime. Then we have Saturday, 8 hours were given, but he had completed in 11 hours, or he had worked for 11 hours, 3 extra hours overtime payment. First, we will use the method which is given in the book. We will use normal hours instead of normal hours. Normal wages, for normal wages we will use hours worked. These are hours worked, and kindly note it down, overtime is already included in it. Normal hours are 8, he had worked for 9 hours, it means 1 overtime hour is already present in hours worked. So for overtime payment, one part of payment is already made. Worked for 9 hours, multiply by 50. 1 second, we'll have to see Bashir's per hour payment. For Bashir we have 60 per hour. So here you will be using 60. And now for next day, 8 working hours, 60 per hour. Next day, 10 hours worked, 60 per hour. Next day, 9 working hours multiplied by 60 per hour. Please focus upon here. We are using hours worked. Here are hours worked. Then we have 8 working hour multiplied by 60 per hour. Final on Saturday, 11 working hours multiplied by 60. So we have got our normal wages over here. Now it's time to calculate the overtime payment. But keep it in mind, one part of overtime payment has already been made, and in question it was said to pay time and half for overtime. Time and half. Time means 1, half means 0.5. One part of payment has already made in hours worked, and we will be paying 0.5. Yani time plus half payment is made right now as an additional payment. Overtime was 1. Look at here, follow these hours. 1 working hour multiplied by 60 per hour, and you need to make half. For that you will multiply it with 0.5. Next day 0. Next day 2 overtime hours multiplied by 60 per hour, and then you will multiply it with 0.5 to make it half. Next working hours 1 multiply by 60 and multiply by 0.5 to make it half. Next 0, and on last day 3 extra overtime hours multiply by 60 per hour and multiply 0.5 to make it half. Alright, all payments we have concluded, and now you can calculate your total wages as well. Here you will make sum of normal wages first. I am taking help from Excel and will ask to sum of these all amounts. So sum is 3300. You can see Bashir, first answer is 3300, and we have calculated 300. Now we will calculate overtime payment. For that we will take sum of all overtime payments per day present over here. We will take sum of them to 10, and you can see second answer is 210. In this way it has been completed. Let's calculate total wages by adding both normal wages and overtime payment. Initially we have calculated them separately. 3300 normal wages, add overtime payment to 10. So we have got our final payment. This is method number 1. I'm really openly sharing it that you are not needed to adopt two methods. Only one method is enough. As you can see, 3300 and 210. 3300 and 210. Answers are matched. So you were only needed to comply with your answers. Here you can see 3300 and 210. And 3300 to 10 is present. Answers are matched. You are not needed to adopt second method. Just for the sake of getting skill, we will be taking no time of calculation of second method, where you will use second method headings from here, and you will be following your second method for Arshad. Method number 2. For that you will use all of the inputs which we have used in previous part. Look what I am doing. All of the parts, all inputs are similar for which we have used in method number 1. The only difference which we will make is over here. Instead of using hours worked, what we will use normal hours, where overtime is not included. Kindly keep it in mind, overtime payment is not included. So what we will do, 8 hours your working hours multiplied by 60, which is your per hour rate 60. And have we changed in method number 1? Let's change it as well. Per hour rate was 64. Second person and name of second person was Bashir. For Bashir, 60 was the normal hour. As you can see, normal 60 was per hour rate. Normal hours are 8 for all the days. It means payment for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday would be similar. Here is the difference which will create distinction between first method and second method. Please keep it in mind. Overtime payment would now be paid separately. We had just paid 8 hours, which does not include overtime. For overtime, it has been said to pay time plus half. Time means 1, half means 0.5. So we will pay overtime payment 1.5. How? Overtime is 1 and you need to multiply it with 60 per hour and then multiply 1.5, which was given in your question. It is needed to change it. 60 were per hour rate for Bashir. In the similar way, you will calculate amount of overtime payment for remaining days. This way you have calculated normal and overtime payment, after which you will calculate sum of normal wages over here, and then you will similarly take sum of overtime payment as well. So you have got sum of normal wages and sum of overtime payment. For total wages, what you will do, you will take sum of both 2880 your normal payment and add your 630 as overtime payment. So this way you have calculated your payment. Look at here. This was your total in method number 1. In method number 2, your total is also 3510. So either you will adopt method number 1 or you will adopt method number 2. You will get the same answers. The difference would be created for normal wages and overtime payment. I have done both methods so that your understanding and your skill can be improved. This method is followed exactly according to instructions of question, where it was said to pay overtime time and half 1.5, but book had followed this way, where overtime was mixed in hours worked. One part was already paid time and half. That means time was paid over here. Remaining half we had paid separately. Answers were matched. Let's review the question. We were having 2950 and 275, and here is your first answer 295 275. Let's mark it as it is completed. First answer 2950 275, 2950 275, and then we have our second answer 33 and 210. Let's mark it as completed. For Bashir 33 and 210. For Bashir 33 and 210. In this way you have completed your answer. I am zooming it off to let you know what we have done. Okay, from here you can see that we have solved this question for Rashid. One method which was followed by the book and one method the suggested one. Understood? Then we have started Bashir. For Bashir, you have solved this question in two ways. One, the method which was followed by the book, and one additional method I have suggested. Both answer 3510, 3510. And in first worker case Rashid, you were having 3225, 3225, one answer according to your book, second suggested answer. Question is reviewed. This was your 9.17. and it has been completed. We have introduced two methods, and I am very sure you have followed and enjoyed the question. If even then you have any query, any question regarding solution of this problem, you are very open to ask your queries, your questions through messages, text, WhatsApp, whatever the medium you want to take. I'm surely be available for answering your question instantly. Very hopeful, inshallah. And again, a very humble request to complete this question or revise this question 4 to 5 times by yourself after watching this lecture. Please repeat this solution for 4 to 5 times to make it hard and fast in your mind. 9.17 is ended. Hopefully we will be meeting soon again for the solution of any other question in future. Up till then, please take care of yourself, and I am requesting you to please pray for me as well. Thank you very much for your time. It's time to say goodbye. Allah Hafiz.